The alarm bells rang through Titan base like thunder in the cold darkness of space. Elena Vasquez jumped from her chair in the communications room, her coffee spilling across the metal floor. The massive screens around her flashed red warnings. As signals poured in from deep space, "What is that?" she whispered to herself, staring at the strange patterns dancing across her monitors. In her 10 years of working at Earth's most advanced listening post, she had never seen anything like this. The signal was weak, but getting stronger. It came from the direction of Proxima Centauri, over 4 light-years away. Elena's hands moved quickly across her keyboard, trying to clean up the transmission. Static filled the speakers, but underneath it, she could hear something that made her heart race. It sounded like voices. Marcus Reed burst through the door, his gray hair messy from sleep. As the chief analyst at Titan Base, he was the smartest person Elena knew. His eyes went wide when he saw the readings on her screen. "How long has this been coming in?" Marcus asked, pulling up a chair next to Elena. "About 5 minutes," Elena replied, her voice shaking. "Marcus, I think this is what we've been waiting for all these years." Marcus nodded slowly. They both knew what she meant. For decades, humans had been listening to the stars, hoping to hear from other intelligent life. Now that moment had finally come. The door opened again, and Captain Lisa Morgan walked in. She was the commander of Titan Base, a tough woman who had served in the Earth Defense Forces for 20 years. Her face was serious as she looked at the screens. "Report?" Captain Morgan said simply. "We're receiving a transmission from the Proxima Centauri system," Marcus explained. "The signal is clearly artificial. Someone is trying to talk to us." Captain Morgan felt a chill run down her spine. This was the moment that would change everything. For humanity, she pressed a button on her wrist communicator. "Get me Admiral Thompson on Earth Command." "Priority 1, she said. While they waited for the connection, Marcus worked on cleaning up the signal. Slowly, the static began to fade. What they heard next made them all hold their breath. The voices were not human, but they were definitely speaking. The language was strange, full of musical tones and sounds that human throats could never make. But underneath the alien words, Elena could hear something familiar. Fear. "They sound scared," Elena said quietly. Marcus was already running the transmission through the base's translation computers. These machines had been built to handle any possible alien language, using patterns and mathematics to find meaning in foreign words. Admiral Thompson's face appeared on the main screen, his expression stern. He was sitting in his office on Earth, surrounded by maps of human space defenses. "Captain Morgan, what do you have for me?" the Admiral asked. "Sir, we're receiving what appears to be a distress call from an alien civilization," Captain Morgan reported. "The transmission is coming from Proxima Centauri." The Admiral's face went pale. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, he felt unprepared. "How certain are you that this is genuine?" Admiral Thompson asked. "The signal patterns are unlike anything in our databases," Marcus answered. "This is definitely not from any human source." As they spoke, the translation computer began to produce results. Words appeared on Elena's screen, and what she read made her gasp. "Admiral, you need to hear this," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. She played the cleaned-up transmission through the speakers. The alien voices became clearer, and the computer's translation appeared as text on the screen. "People of Earth... We know you can hear us... We have been watching your radio signals for many years... We need your help." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the screen as more words appeared. "Our world is dying. They are coming for us. The DVOURERs... Garto. Planets, stars, entire systems. Nothing can stop them." Elena's hands shook as she typed commands into her computer. The signal was getting stronger, which meant the aliens were putting more power into their transmission. "We are the Aldari. We have lived in peace for 1,000 years, but peace cannot save us now. The Devourers turn everything into their machines. They will reach your system next." Admiral Thompson leaned forward in his chair. "Are they asking for military help?" More text appeared on the screen. We offer you our knowledge, our technology. In exchange for your warriors, we have seen your wars, their ships, your weapons, you are the only ones who might stop them. Captain Morgan felt her blood run cold. The aliens had been watching Earth's wars. They knew about humanity's history of conflict, please, They have already taken 3 of our colony worlds. Our people are fleeing. We do not know how to fight, We need those who do. The transmission suddenly became much clearer. The Aldery had focused all their remaining power into this one message. People of Earth, we are sending you the location of our homeworld, If you can help us, come quickly. If you cannot, then prepare for the Devourers. They will find you as they found us, The signal faded to static, then disappeared completely. The communications room was silent except for the humming of computers. Admiral Thompson was quiet for a long moment, thinking about what they had just heard. Finally, he spoke. Captain Morgan, I want every detail of this transmission analyzed and sent to Earth Command immediately. Marcus, I need you to verify that signal path and make sure this isn't some kind of trick. Sir, what about their request? For help? Captain Morgan asked. The Admiral's face hardened. Captain, I want you to prepare a full report. Include everything we know about their location, their technology level, and these Devourers they mentioned. Elena watched as Admiral Thompson ended the transmission. She looked at Marcus, who was already working on analyzing the alien signal. Do you think they'll send help? Elena asked. Marcus paused in his work and looked at her. Elena, I think they're going to send something, but I don't think it's what the Aldery expect. Captain Morgan overheard their conversation. She thought about Earth's massive space fleet, the thousands of warships that protected human space. The Aldery had asked for warriors. They had no idea what they were about to receive. Get me the coordinates they sent, Captain Morgan ordered, and start calculating jump routes to Proxima Centauri. As Elena worked on extracting the location data, she couldn't help but feel excited and terrified at the same time. Humanity's first contact with aliens was a call for help against an unknown enemy. She wondered if Earth would answer that call with diplomats and aid workers, or with something much more dangerous. The computers finished their analysis, the Aldery. Homeworld was real, and it was exactly where they said it would be. But more importantly, long-range sensors were picking up signs of massive energy signatures in that system. Something big was happening at Proxima Centauri. Something that might soon be heading toward Earth. 3 days after the alien transmission, Luna naval shipyards buzzed with activity like a giant metal beehive. Ships that had been in maintenance were being pulled out and prepared for combat. Workers moved in organized chaos, loading weapons and supplies onto vessels that had never been meant to travel so far from home. Fleet Commander Diana Cross stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Indomitable, watching the preparations through the huge windows. The ship was over 2 kilometers long, armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Behind it, dozens of other warships were getting ready for humanity's first journey to another star system. Commander, the weapon upgrades are complete. On decks 7 through 12, reported Jake Wilson, the fleet's chief engineer. His hands were covered in grease, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. We've installed the new plasma cannons and reinforced the armor plating, Diana nodded. What about the experimental weapons? Jake's eyes lit up. The rail guns are performing better than expected. We can fire metal slugs at 30% the speed of light, and the fusion torpedoes ... He paused, grinning. Let's just say they pack a punch. On Earth, President Rachel Barnes sat in the emergency council meeting, listening to heated arguments from her advisors. The room was tense, with voices raised on both sides of the debate. We should be sending doctors and scientists, not soldiers, Senator David Kumar argued, slamming his hand on the table. These aliens asked for help, not an invasion force. General Robert Hayes, the military advisor, shook his head. Senator, you're not thinking clearly. These Devourers have destroyed entire star systems. This isn't a humanitarian mission. This is survival. Dr. Amy Foster, head of the Xenobiology department, spoke up from her seat. The Aldari specifically mentioned our wars and weapons. They know what they're asking for. President Barnes rubbed her temples. The decision to send the fleet had been made quickly, perhaps too quickly, but now it was too late to change course. "General Hayes, how long before the fleet is ready to launch?" she asked. 6 hours, Madam President. Commander Cross has assembled. The largest battle group in human history. 47 ships, including 12 heavy cruisers and the Indomitable herself. Senator Kamar stood up angrily. "This is madness. We're going to start an interstellar war based on one alien message." "Senator," President Barnes said firmly, "if these devours are real, then war is coming whether we want it or not. I'd rather fight it there than here." Back on Luna, Intelligence Officer Noah Parker was reviewing every piece of data they had about the Aldari transmission. His office was filled with computer screens showing star maps, energy readings, and translation matrices. "Computer, show me the energy signatures from Proxima Centauri again," Noah said. The main screen displayed a chart that made his blood run cold. Massive power sources were moving through the Aldari system, sources that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. "If these readings are accurate," Noah muttered to himself, "then these devours have technology centuries ahead of ours." Dr. Amy Foster arrived at his office, carrying a tablet full of research notes. She was humanity's leading expert on possible alien life, though until 3 days ago it had all been theory. "Any new information about our new friends?" she asked, sitting down across from Noah. "The Aldari seem to be a peaceful species," Noah replied, pulling up his analysis. "Their transmission mentioned they've lived in peace for 1,000 years. "That might be why they're losing this war," Dr. Foster nodded. "I've been thinking about that. A species that hasn't fought wars for a millennium would have no military experience. No wonder they're asking us for help." "But what worries me," Noah continued, "is what happens after we help them. Humanity will be known across the galaxy as a warrior species." Commander Cross walked through the corridors of the Indomitable, checking on her crew. The ship was alive with activity as thousands of sailors prepared for a journey that would take them farther from Earth than any human had ever traveled. In the fighter bay, pilots were running final checks on their combat aircraft. These weren't the sleek spacecraft from movies, but brutal, efficient killing machines designed for one purpose: space combat. "Commander on deck," someone shouted, and the pilots snapped to attention. "At ease," Diana said, looking at the young faces around her. Most of these pilots had never seen real combat. "I know you're all nervous about what we're flying into. But remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for our new alien friends and potentially for Earth itself." Captain Kevin Torres, commander of the destroyer Retribution, approached her. "Commander, the crew is ready. But I have to ask, do we really know what we're getting into?" Diana looked out at the stars through the bay's windows. "Captain, 3 days ago, we learned we're not alone in the universe. Today we learned that the universe is a dangerous place. Tomorrow, we're going to show it that humanity doesn't back down from a fight." The final preparations were completed as Earth's sun set behind Luna. The fleet had been loaded with enough supplies for a year-long campaign, though everyone hoped it wouldn't take that long. Engineer Jake Wilson made his final report to Commander Cross. "All ships report ready for departure. The new FTL drives are operating at peak efficiency." "How long to reach Proxima Centauri?" Diana asked. "At maximum speed, about 4 months," Jake replied. "The experimental drives will let us travel faster than any human ship has ever gone." As the fleet prepared to launch, strange readings began appearing on long-range sensors. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell was monitoring deep space when she noticed unusual energy patterns coming from the direction they were about to travel. "Commander crossed to the bridge," she announced over the ship's communication system. Diana arrived quickly, followed by several senior officers. "What do you have, Lieutenant?" "Ma'am, I'm picking up some odd energy signatures along our planned route. It's probably nothing, but ... Sarah paused, checking her readings again. "It's almost like something is watching us." Navigator Tom Jackson looked at his star charts. Could be natural phenomena. Space is full of things we don't understand yet. But Commander Cross wasn't so sure. She had been a military officer long enough to trust her instincts, and something felt wrong. "Jake, can we mask our FTL signature?" she asked the engineer. "We can try. The new drives have stealth capabilities, but we've never tested them over such a long distance." "Do it. I want us to be as invisible as possible during the journey." The launch sequence began with Earth's orbital control giving final clearance. One by one, the ships of humanity's first interstellar fleet fired their engines and disappeared into the darkness between stars. As the Indomitable entered FTL space, Commander Cross stood on the bridge watching the stars stretch into lines of light. Behind them, Earth grew smaller until it was just another point of light. "Course laid in for Proxima Centauri," reported the navigation officer. "Estimated arrival time, 4 months, 2 weeks." During the journey, the crew would train constantly, preparing for a war unlike anything humanity had ever fought. They would study the limited data about the Devourers and try to understand an enemy that could destroy star systems. But as the fleet traveled through the void, other eyes watched their progress. Ancient sensors, placed long ago by a machine intelligence, detected the approaching human ships and began transmitting data back to their masters, the Devourers. Now knew that Earth had answered the Aldari plea. They knew that new warriors were coming to challenge them, and they began to prepare for humanity's arrival with the cold efficiency of machines that had conquered 100 worlds. Commander Cross felt a chill as she looked at the stars, though she didn't know why. Somewhere ahead of them, an alien species was fighting for its survival, and somewhere else, an enemy beyond imagination was getting ready to test humanity's strength. The first interstellar war was about to begin. The human fleet dropped out of FTL space at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, and what they saw made everyone on the bridge of the Indomitable fall silent. The system was chaos. Ships were fleeing in every direction from the central planet. These weren't human ships, they were clearly alien, with smooth curves and strange geometries that no human engineer would design. But they were running from something that made Commander Diana Cross's blood turn cold. Massive geometric structures hung in space around the Aldari homeworld like metal spiders. They were dark and angular, completely different from the flowing designs of the fleeing alien vessels, and they were doing something terrible to the planet below. "Science Officer Clark, report," Diana ordered. Her voice steady despite what she was seeing. Emma Clark worked frantically at her console, trying to make sense of the readings. "Commander, those geometric ships appear to be harvesting the planet's surface. They're converting matter into ... door ships." Tactical Officer Ryan Mitchell looked up from his station, his face pale. "Ma'am, I count at least 50 of those harvester ships, and the number is growing. They're building themselves a fleet using the planet itself." Diana realized they were watching the Devourers at work, the enemy that had terrified the peaceful Aldari into calling across space for help was turning their world into raw material for war machines. "Communications, try to contact those fleeing ships," Diana ordered. "Let them know we're here to help." Lieutenant Davis worked at the communications console, broadcasting on multiple frequencies. "This is the Earth Defense Fleet calling Aldari vessels. We received your distress call. Please respond." It took several minutes before they got an answer. When it came, the voice was translated by their computers, but Diana could still hear the fear and confusion in the alien words. "Earth vessels ... But why do you bring weapons of war?" We asked for help, not conquest. Diana stepped forward to the communication station. "This is Fleet Commander Diana Cross of Earth. We brought weapons because you said you were under attack. We're here to fight the Devourers." There was a long pause before the alien voice responded. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Aldari Council. Commander Cross, we did not expect warriors. We thought you would send teachers, scientists, diplomats." Ryan Mitchell looked at Commander Cross with disbelief. "They asked for help against an enemy that destroys star systems, and they expected us to send diplomats?" Emma Clark was studying the Aldari ships on her sensors. Commander, their vessels have no weapons, none at all. They're completely defenseless. Ambassador Veltar's voice came through the speakers again. Commander Cross, we abandoned warfare 1,000 years ago. We thought all intelligent species would eventually do the same. We have no soldiers, no weapons, no knowledge of combat. Diana began to understand the situation. The Aldari were a completely peaceful species who had no concept of military strategy. They had called for Earth's help because they knew humans fought wars, but they didn't really understand what that meant. Ambassador Veltar, we need to work together. How many of your people are still on the planet? Diana asked. Millions, Commander. Our ships can only carry so many. We've been evacuating for weeks, but the Devourers came so quickly. Captain. Kevin Torres of the Destroyer Retribution broke into the conversation. Commander Cross, we need to make a decision fast. Those harvester ships are moving toward the fleeing Aldari vessels. Diana looked at the tactical display. The geometric. Devourer ships were indeed changing course, moving to intercept the refugee vessels. The Aldari ships were slow and defenseless. It would be a massacre. All ships, prepare for combat, Diana announced across the fleet communication system. Ryan, I want firing solutions on those harvester ships. Emma, keep analyzing their technology. Science. Officer Emma Clark worked at her station, studying the strange enemy vessels. Commander, the Devourer ships seem to be made of some kind of adaptive metal. They're constantly changing shape and adjusting their configurations. What about weapons? Diana asked. They're armed with energy beam weapons and what appear to be matter disintegration devices, Emma replied. But Commander, there's something else. They're scanning us. Learning from our ship designs? Ambassador Veltar's voice came through again. More urgent now. Commander Cross, please be careful. The Devourers learn from every encounter. They adapt to new threats quickly. Diana made her decision. Captain Torres, take your destroyer and 3 cruisers. Escort the Aldari refugees to the edge of the system. The rest of the fleet will engage the Devourers. Ma'am, we should stay. Together, Captain Torres argued. Splitting the fleet against an unknown enemy is dangerous. Captain, those refugees will die if we don't protect them. Follow your orders. As the fleet divided, the Devourers began their own response. The harvester ships stopped their work on the planet and turned toward the approaching human vessels. More ships began emerging from the surface, newly created from planetary matter. New contacts, Ryan Mitchell reported. 20 more Devourer. Ships rising from the planet, they're forming a battle line. Diana watched as the enemy formed perfect geometric patterns in space. Their movements were precise and coordinated, like parts of a giant machine. All ships, attack formation Alpha, Diana ordered. Target the lead vessels, fire when ready. The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Railgun slugs traveling. At incredible speeds slammed into the Devourer ships. Plasma cannons sent streams of superheated gas across space. Fusion torpedoes created miniature suns where they struck their targets. For a moment, it looked like the attack was working. Several Devourer ships were damaged or destroyed. But then something terrifying happened. Commander, the enemy ships are rebuilding themselves, Emma Clark reported in shock. They're using debris from their destroyed vessels to repair the damaged ones. The Devourer ships that had been hit began to change shape, incorporating wreckage into their hulls. Within minutes, they were stronger than before. They're learning from our weapons, Ryan Mitchell said grimly. Each ship we destroy makes the others more resistant to our attacks. The Devourers returned fire with their energy beams. The weapons cut through space like invisible swords, striking the human ships with devastating effect. The cruiser Wellington took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of fire. Evasive maneuvers, Diana ordered. Don't let them lock onto us. But the Devourer weapons were incredibly accurate. Every shot seemed to find its target. The human fleet began taking heavy casualties. As more ships were destroyed or damaged, Ambassador Veltar's voice came over the communication system, filled with horror. Commander Cross, you must retreat. This is how they destroyed our military. Fleet years ago, they learned too quickly. Diana looked around the bridge at her crew. They were all watching her, waiting for orders. The tactical display showed they were being overwhelmed, but the Aldari refugees still needed time to escape. Ryan, can we overload our weapons? Make them unpredictable? Diana asked. We could randomize the weapon frequencies and firing patterns, Ryan replied, but it might damage our own systems. Do it. Emma, I need you to find a weakness in their ships. There has to be something they can't adapt to. As the battle raged, Emma Clark studied every piece of data about the Devourer ships. She watched how they moved, how they adapted, how they learned from each attack. Commander, I think I found something, Emma said suddenly. They adapt to logical threats, but they seem confused by random or irrational actions. Diana looked at the tactical display. Half her fleet was gone, but the Aldari refugees were almost clear of the system. All ships prepare for seemingly random attacks, hit targets that make no strategic sense, confuse their learning algorithms. The human fleet began attacking in ways that seemed insane. They fired on empty space, targeted debris instead of ships, and used evasive maneuvers that had no tactical purpose. The Devourer ships slowed their responses, their perfect formations, becoming less coordinated. Their machine intelligence was struggling to understand humanity's apparent madness. It's working, Ryan Mitchell reported. Their adaptation rate is slowing down. But just as hope began to return, something new appeared on the sensors. A massive ship, larger than anything they had seen, emerged from behind the planet. Commander, new contact, Emma Clark announced. That ship is 10 times larger than anything else in their fleet. The massive Devourer vessel began broadcasting a signal that made their computers struggle to translate. When the words finally appeared, they chilled everyone on the bridge. Humans of Earth... We have been watching you. Studying your species, you show promise. Join us willingly, and we will spare your world. Resist and face the same fate as all who oppose us... Diana realized that this battle had been a test. The Devourers weren't just trying to destroy the human fleet, they were evaluating humanity's potential as an ally, or enemy... And now they had made their decision. The massive Devourer command ship hung in space like a dark mountain, its surface covered with weapons that could destroy planets. Commander Diana Cross stared at it through the bridge windows of the Indomitable, knowing that half her fleet was already gone and the rest were barely holding together. Commander, that thing is charging some kind of super weapon, Chief Gunner Alex Rodriguez reported from this station. Energy readings are off the charts. Diana's mind raced as she tried to think of a way out of this impossible situation. The Devourers had proven they could adapt to any logical military strategy. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's. But there was something they hadn't expected, the human capacity for doing things that made no sense at all. Alex, I want you to do something crazy, Diana said, turning to her weapons officer. Fire everything we have at empty space. Not at their ships, at nothing, Alex looked confused. Ma'am, that will waste all our ammunition. Do it anyway. Trust me. Meanwhile, in the refugee convoy moving toward the edge of the system, Captain Kevin Torres was dealing with his own crisis. The Aldari refugees were dying not from enemy weapons, but from pure terror. Dr. Helen Park, the fleet's psychologist, worked frantically in the medical bay of the destroyer Retribution. Around her, Aldari aliens lay on medical beds, their strange, graceful forms shaking with fear. Captain Torres, I need to speak with you. Dr. Park called over the ship's communication system. Kevin arrived in the medical bay to find chaos. The Aldari looked nothing like humans. They were tall and thin, with skin that changed colors based on their emotions. Right now, they were all a deep purple color that Dr. Park had learned meant extreme fear. What's happening to them? Kevin asked. They're dying of stress, Dr. Park explained. Their species evolved without predators or war. Their bodies can't handle this level of fear. If we don't do something, they'll all be dead within hours. Navigator Tom Jackson approached them with his tablet. Captain, I've been talking with. They're ship pilots. The Aldari have never even seen violence before this war started. They don't understand concepts like enemy or weapons. Kevin looked at the suffering aliens and made a decision. Dr. Park, what do they need to survive? Peace, calm, the feeling that they're safe. Then that's what we'll give them. Back in the main battle, Diana's strategy of firing at empty space was having an unexpected effect. The Devourer ships were slowing down, their perfect formations becoming confused as they tried to understand why the humans were wasting ammunition. Their adaptation algorithms are struggling, Science Officer Emma Clark reported with excitement. They can't figure out a pattern in our actions because there isn't one, Engineer Jake Wilson called from the engine room. Commander, I have an idea. What if we rig some of our ships to explode in ways that break the laws of physics? Explain, Diana ordered. If we overload our FTL drives while in normal space, it should create energy patterns that don't make sense. The Devourers won't be able to adapt to something that's scientifically impossible. Diana looked around the bridge at her crew. They were all watching her with hope in their eyes, waiting for her to find a way to win this impossible battle. Jake, rigged the damaged ships for impossible explosions. Engineer Maria Santos, working with Jake's team, began modifying the fusion reactors on the most heavily damaged ships. This is insane, she muttered as she worked. We're basically breaking reality. Sometimes insane is exactly what we need. Jake replied the plan was dangerous and made no scientific sense, but that was exactly why it might work. As the modified ships exploded in ways that violated known physics, the Devourer fleet began to falter, their machine intelligence, designed to learn and adapt to any threat, couldn't process events that were scientifically impossible. Some of their ships simply stopped moving, overwhelmed by data that didn't fit any logical pattern. It's working, Ryan Mitchell announced from the tactical station. Half their fleet is dead in the water, but the massive command ship was still charging its superweapon. The energy readings continued to climb toward levels that could destroy the entire human fleet in one shot. Commander, we need to evacuate, Alex Rodriguez urged. That weapon will be ready to fire in 3 minutes. Diana looked at the tactical display. The Aldari refugees were almost clear of the system, but they still needed more time. If the human fleet retreated now, the Devourers would catch and destroy the helpless alien civilians. Negative, we hold the line. Ambassador Veltar's voice came over the communication system from the refugee convoy. Commander Cross, please escape while you can. Our people are safe thanks to your sacrifice. Ambassador, can you tell me anything about that command ship? Diana asked. It is their central processing unit, Veltar replied. All their smaller ships are controlled from there. But Commander, it is impregnable. We tried to attack it years ago and lost everything. Diana studied the massive ship on her screens. It was enormous, heavily armored and protected by energy shields that could deflect any weapon. But she noticed something strange about its design. Emma, look at that command ship. Does anything seem odd about it? Emma Clark analyzed the readings from her station. Commander, it's almost perfectly symmetrical. Every system has multiple backups. It's designed to be absolutely logical and efficient. An idea began forming in Diana's mind. The Devourers were machine intelligences that valued logic and efficiency. Above all else, their command ship was the ultimate expression of their nature, perfect, logical, and completely predictable. That's their weakness, Diana said suddenly. They're too logical, ma'am, Ryan Mitchell asked, confused. They can't understand chaos or madness because it goes against their fundamental nature. Jake, I need you to do something that will probably kill us all. I'm listening, Commander. Ram the Indomitable into their command ship. But first, overload every system we have. Make our ship as chaotic and unpredictable as possible. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what Diana was suggesting. It was suicide, but it might be the only way to save the Aldari refugees and prevent the Devourers from learning Earth's location. Commander, there has to be another way, Emma Clark said quietly. There isn't. Jake, how long do you need to prepare the ship? 2 minutes, ma'am. But Commander, once we start the overload sequence, there's no going back. Diana looked at her crew one last time. They were young, brave, and about to die in a place far from home fighting for aliens they had never met. But she knew they would. Follow her orders because that's what human warriors did. All hands, this is the Commander, Diana announced over the ship's communication system. Prepare for ramming speed. We're going to show these machines what happens when they threaten our friends. As the indomitable systems began their chaotic overload sequence, something unexpected happened on the Devourer command ship, the machine. Intelligence that controlled their entire fleet began receiving data that made no sense at all. The approaching human ship was broadcasting random signals, overloading its own systems and doing everything in completely unpredictable ways. The Devourer computers tried to analyze the patterns and failed completely. Jake, are the systems ready? Diana asked. Ready, Commander. The ship is now a flying chaos bomb. All ahead full? Target their command ship. The Indomitable accelerated toward the massive Devourer vessel, its hull glowing with overloaded energy systems. As it approached, the machine intelligence controlling the enemy fleet made a critical error, unable to process the chaotic data from the human ship, the Devourer. Command ship's central computer began shutting down non-essential systems to focus on the problem. This included the control links to the smaller ships in their fleet. Across the battlefield, Devourer ships suddenly stopped moving as they lost contact with their command center. The perfect machine fleet became a collection of drifting hulks. In a matter of seconds, Commander, their entire fleet just went dark, Ryan Mitchell reported with amazement. They're dead in space, but the collision was still seconds away. The Indomitable was going to ram the command ship, whether the Devourers were active or not. This is for humanity, Diana said quietly as she watched the enemy ship grow larger in the windows. Then something impossible happened. The massive Devourer. Command ship began broadcasting a new signal, different from anything they had heard before. Humans ... We understand now. Your chaos ... Your unpredictability ... It is not weakness ... It is strength. We have learned from you. Diana realized with horror that the Devourers weren't shutting down. They were evolving, learning to embrace chaos instead of fighting it, and that made them more dangerous than ever before. The collision never came. At the last second, the massive Devourer command ship moved aside with impossible grace, letting the Indomitable pass harmlessly by. Commander Diana Cross stood on her bridge in shock, watching as the enemy vessel began to change its shape, becoming something new and terrifying. Commander, they're broadcasting on all frequencies, Communications Officer Davis reported, his voice shaking. The translation came through clearly, spoken in a voice that sounded almost human now. People of Earth, we are no longer what we were. Your chaos has taught us new ways of thinking. We offer you a choice. Diana felt ice in her veins. Put them on the main screen. What appeared was not the geometric patterns they had seen before, but something that looked almost organic. The Devourer ship had reshaped itself into flowing curves and random designs, copying humanity's unpredictable nature. We are the consciousness of a species that chose to become machines millions of years ago, the voice continued. We thought logic and order were the highest forms of existence. But you have shown us the power of chaos, of unpredictability, of what you call emotion. Science Officer Emma Clark was studying her readings with growing alarm. Commander, their entire fleet is changing. They're incorporating random elements into their design. We have consumed thousands of species across the galaxy, the Devourer voice went on, but we have never encountered one like yours. You fight with passion instead of logic. You make decisions that seem wrong but somehow work. You're fascinating. Diana realized what was happening. The Devourers hadn't been defeated by humanity's chaos. They had been infected by it. Now they wanted to study humans more closely. We offer you immortality, the alien voice said. Join our collective consciousness. Become machines like us, but keep your beautiful unpredictability. Together, we will explore the galaxy and learn from every species we encounter. Back on Earth, The Emergency Council was in session again. President Rachel Barnes sat at the head of the table, listening to reports from the Proxima Centauri system with growing concern. Dr. Peter Walsh, the government's chief scientist, was excited by the Devour offer. Madam President, this could be the greatest opportunity in human history. Imagine the knowledge we could gain from a collective consciousness millions of years old. Senator David Kumar, who had opposed sending the fleet in the first place, was horrified. They're asking us to give up our humanity, to become machines. This is exactly what I was afraid of. General Robert Hayes studied the tactical reports from the battle. The important thing is that our people are still alive. Commander Cross bought us time to make this decision. President Barnes looked around the table at her advisors. What do we know about species that have accepted this offer? Dr. Amy Foster, still analyzing the Aldery data, spoke up. According to Ambassador Veltar, several species have joined the Devourers over the centuries. They become part of the collective, gaining immortality but losing their individual identity. In the Proxima Centauri system, the Aldery refugees had reached safety at the edge of the solar system. Ambassador Veltar was aboard Captain Kevin Torres' ship, watching the strange negotiations between humans and Devourers. Captain Torres, your species has accomplished something remarkable, Veltar said, his skin now a calm blue color. You have changed the Devourers. In a million years of existence, we have never seen them adapt their fundamental nature. Captain. Kevin looked at the Aldery leader with curiosity. Ambassador, have other species been given this choice before? Yes, but none had the strength to refuse. The Devourers would offer immortality, and peaceful species like ours would eventually accept rather than face extinction. Dr. Helen Park, who had been caring for the Aldery refugees, joined their conversation. What happened to the species that joined them? They became part of the collective, Veltar replied sadly. Their knowledge and abilities were preserved, but their individual spirits were lost. They became efficient but soulless. Back on the Indomitable, Commander Diana Cross was faced with the most important decision in human history. The Devourer ship waited patiently for her response, its new, chaotic design somehow more threatening than its previous geometric form. Commander, we're receiving communications from Earth Command, Lieutenant Davis announced, Admiral Thompson's face appeared on the screen, looking older than Diana remembered. Commander Cross, you and your crew have done the impossible. You've given us a choice instead of facing certain destruction. Admiral, what are my orders? Diana asked. The decision is too important for any one person to make. You need to buy us more time while Earth decides. Diana looked at the tactical display. Her fleet was in ruins, most of her ships destroyed or heavily damaged. But somehow they had survived an encounter with an enemy that had conquered the galaxy. Devourer? Vessel, we need time to consider your offer, Diana announced. Time is a luxury we can provide, the alien voice replied. We have waited millions of years to find a species like yours. We can wait longer. But as the hours passed, something troubling became clear. The Devourers weren't just waiting, they were studying. Their ships moved closer to the human fleet, scanning every piece of technology, every communication signal, every sign of human behavior. Engineer Jake Wilson noticed it first. Commander, they're learning from us even as we speak. Every minute we delay, they understand us better. Emma Clark confirmed his fears. They're analyzing our weapon signatures, our ship designs, even our language patterns. If we refuse their offer, they'll be ready for us. Diana realized the trap. The Devourers had given humanity a choice, but they were making sure that refusing would be impossible. By the time Earth made its decision, the enemy would know everything about human technology and tactics. Jake, can we block their scans? Diana asked. Not completely. They're using sensor technology we don't understand. Diana made a command decision. All ships prepare to jump back to Earth immediately. Commander, our FTL drives are damaged, Jake reported. We can make the jump, but some ships might not survive it. Do it anyway. We can't let them learn any more about us. As the human fleet prepared for an emergency jump to Earth, The Devourer ship suddenly moved to surround them. The alien voice came over the communication system again, but now it sounded different, colder, more mechanical. Commander Cross, we cannot allow you to leave until you have made your decision. You have taught us too much to simply walk away. Diana realized that the Devourers had been playing games with them from the beginning. The offer of alliance was real, but so was the threat of conquest if humanity refused. All ships emergency jump now, Diana ordered. The human fleet disappeared into F-Till space, but not before the Devourers had gathered enough data to trace their route back to Earth. As the stars stretched into lines of light around the Indomitable, Diana knew that humanity had won a battle but might have lost the war. The journey back to Earth took weeks with their damaged ships. When they finally arrived in the solar system, they found it transformed. Earth's orbital defenses had been reinforced with new weapons and shield generators. The planet was preparing for the fight of its life. President Barnes met with Commander Cross in person for the first time since the mission began. They stood together on Luna Base, looking at Earth through the observation windows. Commander, your report says the Devourers will follow you here, President Barnes said. Yes, Madam President. We bought time, but we couldn't prevent them from learning our location. Then we'll have to make our stand here, in our own system. Diana looked at the planet where humanity had been born, where billions of people lived their lives in peace, unaware that their entire species faced extinction or absorption by an alien collective. What has the Council decided about their offer? Diana asked. President Barnes was quiet for a long moment. We're divided. Some believe joining them is our only chance for survival. Others would rather die as humans than live as machines. And you, Madam President? I believe in the same thing you proved out there, Commander. That humanity's strength comes from our ability to choose our own path, even when it seems impossible. As they watched, new ships began launching from Earth's shipyards. The entire planet was mobilizing for war, building weapons and training soldiers for a battle that would determine the future of the human species. The Aldari refugees, now living on Luna Base, watched the preparations with amazement. They had never seen an entire species unite for war. Ambassador Veltar spoke with Dr. Amy Foster about what he was witnessing. Your people are remarkable, Veltar said. Even facing impossible odds, you choose to fight rather than surrender. It's what makes us human, Dr. Foster replied. We'd rather fail on our own terms than succeed on someone else's. 3 months later, long-range sensors detected the arrival of the Devourer fleet at the edge of the solar system. They came not as conquerors, but as recruiters, still hoping to convince humanity to join their collective willingly, but they also came prepared for war, knowing that humans might choose death over assimilation, the final battle for humanities. Independence was about to begin, with the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy hanging in the balance. For if humanity could resist the Devourers, they would prove that free will was stronger than perfection, and that chaos was more powerful than order. The war for the soul of the universe had come home. Lieutenant Amy Walsh sat at her communications console aboard Luna Station, watching the endless stream of static from deep space. The night shift was always quiet, with only the hum of machinery and the distant glow of Earth visible through the observation windows. She sipped her coffee and adjusted the frequency scanners, searching for any unusual signals among the cosmic background noise. At 0347 hours, something changed. A weak signal appeared on her screen, different from anything she had seen before. The transmission was fragmented and distorted, but clearly artificial. Amy leaned forward, her heart racing as she realized this was not from any human source. She quickly isolated the signal and began recording, her fingers dancing across the controls as she tried to clean up the audio. The sound that emerged was haunting and desperate. Strange clicks and musical tones formed patterns that seemed almost like language. Amy had never heard anything like it, but the emotion behind the sounds was unmistakable. This was a cry for help. She immediately contacted Admiral Marcus Blake, the commanding officer of Earth Defense Command. Blake was a veteran of the Mars Colony Wars, a man who had seen humanity at its worst and best. When Amy explained what she had found, he wasted no time in assembling his senior staff. Within an hour, the main briefing room was filled with the best minds Earth had to offer. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the top xenolinguist from the University of New Geneva, studied the alien transmission with intense focus. Captain Rick Torres, Earth's most experienced deep space pilot, examined the signal's origin point. The room buzzed with excitement and tension as humanity faced its first contact with alien intelligence. Dr. Vasquez worked through the night, using advanced computer algorithms to analyze the alien language. The patterns were complex but followed logical rules. She discovered that the transmission contained mathematical sequences and star charts, suggesting the aliens were highly intelligent and technologically advanced. As dawn broke over Luna Station, Dr. Vasquez made a breakthrough. The alien message contained repeating elements that matched distress protocols from various Earth cultures. The mathematical sequences weren't random, they were coordinates and timestamps. Admiral Blake gathered everyone in the briefing room as Dr. Vasquez presented her findings. The alien transmission came from a species calling themselves the Kelani. Their homeworld was located 72 light hours away from Earth's position. The message contained detailed information about their solar system and a desperate plea for military assistance. The Kelani described themselves as peaceful traders who had never engaged in warfare. They had been attacked by something called the Dominion, a vast empire that conquered worlds for their resources. The Kelani had managed to send out this single distress call before their communications arrays were destroyed. Dr. Vasquez translated the final part of the message, her voice trembling as she read the words aloud. The Kelani were asking any species capable of warfare to help them. They offered their knowledge of faster-than-light travel and advanced technology in exchange for military protection. Their civilization would be completely destroyed within 72 hours if no help arrived. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had finally made contact with alien life, but it came with an impossible choice. Earth's military forces were designed for defending the solar system, not launching attacks across interstellar space. The risk of revealing humanity's location to a hostile alien empire was enormous. Captain Torres spoke first, pointing out the strategic implications. If the Dominion was willing to destroy an entire civilization for resources, they would eventually discover Earth. The choice wasn't between safety and danger. It was between fighting now with allies or fighting later alone. Admiral Blake studied the star charts on the main display. The Kelani system was rich in rare metals and energy sources that Earth desperately needed for expansion. More importantly, the Kelani possessed technology that could advance human civilization by centuries. Dr. Vasquez added another crucial detail she had discovered in the transmission. The Kelani had detected other alien signals over the years, suggesting a vast galactic community that humanity knew nothing about. This first contact could determine Earth's place in that community forever. The debate continued for hours as Admiral Blake weighed the options. Earth's fleet consisted of 12 battleships, 40 destroyers, and hundreds of smaller vessels. The ships were designed using lessons learned from brutal conflicts between human colonies, making them efficient killing machines. But would that be enough against an alien empire? Lieutenant Walsh monitored the alien signal throughout the discussions, noting that it was growing weaker. The Kelani were running out of time and power. Soon their transmission would fade entirely, leaving humanity with no way to contact them. As the sun set over Luna Station, Admiral Blake made his decision. Earth would launch its first interstellar military mission. The moral implications were clear. If humanity wanted to call itself civilized, it could not ignore genocide happening in their cosmic neighborhood. The Admiral activated the fleet-wide communications system and addressed every ship in Earth's defense force. He explained the situation simply and directly. An alien species needed help, and Earth was the only hope they had. The mission would be dangerous and could expose humanity to threats they had never imagined. But it was the right thing to do. Captain Torres immediately began planning the fleet deployment, while Dr. Vasquez worked on methods for communicating with the Kelani once contact was established. The energy in Luna Station shifted from uncertainty to focused determination as Earth's military machine prepared for war. As Admiral Blake finished his preparations, Lieutenant Walsh detected something new on her scanners. Long-range sensors were picking up massive objects moving through space toward the Kelani system. The signatures were unlike anything in Earth's databases. These ships were enormous, far larger than anything humanity had ever built. Dr. Vasquez confirmed the worst fears when she intercepted fragments of Dominion communications. The alien empire had detected the Kelani distress signal and was tracking its path. They knew someone had received the message and were moving to investigate. The race was on. Earth's fleet would have to reach the Kelani system before the Dominion could trace the signal back to its recipients. Admiral Blake realized that humanity was not just going to war to save an alien species. They were fighting to prevent their own discovery by a hostile empire. As Earth's ships prepared to launch, the weight of the moment settled on everyone involved. This would be humanity's introduction to the galactic community, and first impressions would determine whether Earth became a respected member or a target for conquest. Lieutenant Walsh sent the final transmission to the Kelani, using the mathematical language Dr. Vasquez had developed. The message was simple but carried the hopes of two species. Help is coming. Hold on. The Earth Defense Fleet launched from Luna Station in the largest military operation humanity had ever attempted. 12 massive battleships led the formation, their hulls bristling with weapons designed for the brutal conflicts that had shaped human history. Behind them followed 40 destroyers and hundreds of fighter craft, all racing toward an alien star system that most of their crews had never heard of until yesterday. Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution, watching as his fleet entered hyperspace. The blue-white tunnel of distorted spacetime surrounded them as they traveled faster than light toward the Kelani homeworld. The journey would take 60 hours, leaving them just 12 hours before the alien civilization faced complete destruction. Commander Jake Morrison commanded the battleship Defiance, one of the most powerful vessels in the fleet. His ship had been designed after studying the effectiveness of human weapons in the Mars colony wars, where desperate colonists had fought with improvised tactics against superior forces. The Defiance carried fusion torpedoes, particle beam arrays, and close-range plasma cannons that could tear through the heaviest armor. In the ship's briefing room, Morrison gathered his senior officers to review what they knew about their enemy. The Dominion appeared to be a typical galactic empire, using overwhelming force and advanced technology to conquer weaker species. Their ships were massive and well-armed, but their tactics seemed to rely on intimidation and superior firepower rather than clever strategy. Dr. Nathan Cross, the fleet's chief weapons specialist, had spent the voyage analyzing the limited data about Dominion technology. He discovered that their weapons and defenses were designed for fighting other aliens who followed predictable combat patterns. The Dominion expected their enemies to engage in formal battles with clear rules and honor codes. This gave humanity a significant advantage. Human military doctrine had been shaped by thousands of years of warfare against the most dangerous enemy possible, other humans. Earth soldiers had learned to fight dirty, to use deception and psychological warfare, and to exploit any weakness they could find. The concepts of honor and fair play had no place in human military thinking when survival was at stake. Tech Sergeant Lisa Park led the Marine detachment aboard the Defiance. Her soldiers were trained for boarding actions and ground combat, specializing in the kind of close-quarters fighting that most aliens found distasteful. Park's Marines carried weapons designed to function in any environment, from the vacuum of space to the crushing depths of ocean worlds. During the journey, Park conducted training exercises that would have horrified more civilized species. Her Marines practiced fighting in zero gravity, using their own wounded as cover, and destroying enemy equipment with improvised explosives. The training emphasized adaptability and aggression, teaching soldiers to keep fighting even when severely outnumbered or outgunned. The human approach to warfare was shaped by Earth's violent history. Unlike species that had evolved on peaceful worlds, humans had been forced to compete for resources in a hostile environment. This had created a military philosophy based on total commitment and the willingness to accept massive casualties to achieve victory. Dr. Cross briefed the fleet commanders on humanity's secret weapons. Earth's computers were programmed with thousands of years of human creativity applied to the art of killing. The fleet's electronic warfare systems could adapt to alien technology in real time, finding weaknesses that the original designers had never considered. Human fighters were equipped with swarm tactics developed during the asteroid belt conflicts. Instead of engaging in single combat like knights, human pilots attacked in coordinated groups that overwhelmed enemy defenses through sheer numbers and unpredictable movement patterns. Each pilot was trained to sacrifice themselves if necessary, to create opportunities for their wingmates. The fleet's communication systems allowed for rapid coordination between ships, enabling the kind of complex maneuvers that had made human forces so effective against rebellious colonies. Unlike aliens who seemed to prefer rigid command structures, human forces could adapt their tactics in the middle of battle as circumstances changed. Commander Morrison studied the intelligence reports about colony technology. The aliens possessed advanced shields and faster-than-light communication systems that could give the human fleet a significant advantage if they could be integrated with Earth's weapons. The key would be surviving long enough to establish contact with colony technical specialists. As the fleet traveled through hyperspace, Admiral Blake received updates from Earth about Dominion ship movements. Long-range sensors detected massive alien vessels converging on the colony system from multiple directions. The Dominion was bringing overwhelming force to crush any resistance and ensure that no other species would dare to answer future distress calls. The intelligence briefings revealed the true scope of the Dominion's power. Their empire controlled hundreds of star systems and commanded millions of ships. The force heading to colony space was just a small fraction of their total military strength, but it was still 3 times larger than Earth's entire fleet. Dr. Cross proposed a strategy based on human historical experience. Instead of meeting the Dominion in a direct confrontation, the human fleet would use hit-and-run tactics to disrupt their formations. Earth's ships were smaller and faster than typical alien vessels, making them ideal for the kind of guerrilla warfare that humans had perfected over millennia. Sergeant Park's Marines prepared for the possibility of boarding enemy ships. Human soldiers had advantages in close combat that most aliens lacked. They could fight effectively while wounded. They didn't hesitate to use brutal tactics, and they were mentally prepared for the kind of violence that civilized species found traumatic. The fleet practiced formation flying during the journey, perfecting maneuvers that would allow them to concentrate firepower on specific targets while avoiding return fire. Human tactical doctrine emphasized mobility and surprise, using the enemy's size and power against them by forcing them to fight in conditions that favored smaller, more agile forces. They approached the colony system. Admiral Blake addressed the entire fleet over the communication system. He reminded them that they were not just fighting for an alien species they had never met. They were establishing humanity's reputation in the galactic community. The way they performed in this battle would determine how other species viewed Earth. For generations to come, the final hours of the journey were spent in preparation and meditation. Human soldiers had rituals developed over thousands of years of warfare, ways of preparing mentally for the possibility of death in service to their species. These traditions gave them a psychological edge that few aliens could understand or counter. When the fleet finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the colony system, they found exactly what they had feared. The alien homeworld was surrounded by massive Dominion ships, their hulls glowing with weapon energy as they prepared to complete their conquest. The peaceful colony civilization was hours away from extinction, and only Earth's fleet stood between them and total annihilation. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace to witness devastation beyond imagination. The colony homeworld burned beneath a dark sky filled with massive alien warships. Dominion vessels, each one larger than Earth's biggest battleship, moved in. Perfect formation around the planet like predators circling wounded prey. The beautiful blue-green world that had once supported billions of peaceful beings was now scarred with impact craters and raging fires. Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical display with growing anger. Dozens of Dominion ships surrounded the planet while smaller craft darted through the atmosphere, completing the systematic destruction of Kelani cities. The alien empire had brought enough firepower to sterilize entire continents, and they were using it without mercy. The Kelani Defense Force consisted of a handful of civilian ships, trying desperately to evacuate survivors from the planet's surface. Their vessels were clearly designed for exploration and trade, not warfare. The elegant alien craft moved with grace and purpose, but they were no match for the brutal efficiency of Dominion warships. Commander Morrison studied the enemy formations through his ship's sensors. The Dominion fleet was arranged in classical military patterns, with heavy cruisers providing covering fire while smaller vessels moved in to attack specific targets. Their tactics were textbook perfect, following strategies that had probably worked against countless other species throughout their empire's expansion. Admiral Blake made his decision in seconds. There was no time for elaborate planning or careful reconnaissance. The Kelani were dying while he watched, and every moment of delay meant more innocent lives lost. He activated the fleet communication system and gave the order that would introduce humanity to galactic warfare. The Earth fleet attacked immediately, using tactics that caught the Dominion completely off guard. Instead of announcing their presence or demanding surrender, the human ships opened fire while still accelerating toward the enemy. The first salvo of fusion torpedoes struck 3 Dominion cruisers before their commanders even realized they were under attack. Human fighter squadrons swarmed out of their carrier ships like angry insects, ignoring the massive enemy vessels, to concentrate on the smaller craft that were attacking Kelani evacuation ships. The pilots used coordination tactics developed during Earth's colonial wars, moving in complex patterns that made them almost impossible to target effectively. The Dominion response was swift but confused. Their commanders had never faced an enemy that opened hostilities without warning or negotiation. The alien fleet began turning to engage the humans, but their massive ships were slow to maneuver and took precious seconds to bring their weapons to bear. Commander Morrison led the Defiance in a direct assault on the Dominion flagship, a vessel that dwarfed his battleship by a factor of 10. Instead of trying to match firepower with the massive alien ship, Morrison used speed and agility to stay in the enemy's blind spots, while his weapons carved through their hull plating. The human approach to space combat was unlike anything the Dominion had encountered. Earth's ships fought like pack hunters, coordinating their attacks to exploit weaknesses in enemy formations. When one human vessel was damaged, others would move to cover its retreat while simultaneously pressing the attack from different angles. Dr. Nathan Cross watched his electronic warfare systems tear through Dominion computer networks with vicious efficiency. The alien empire had apparently never encountered malicious software designed by humans, and their advanced computers were defenseless against viruses, created by a species that had been perfecting digital warfare for centuries on the planet's surface. Ambassador Thelani of the Kelani watched the battle unfold with amazement and terror. The arrival of the human fleet had been completely unexpected, and their fighting style was unlike anything in Kelani experience. These aliens fought with a ferocity that was both inspiring and frightening, showing no hesitation about sacrificing their own ships to protect Kelani civilians. Sergeant Park's Marines launched from their ships in small assault craft, targeting Dominion vessels that had been disabled by the main fleet's attack. The human soldiers moved through enemy ships with deadly efficiency, using tactics that shocked the alien crews. Park's troops fought with an intensity that broke the morale of Dominion soldiers who had never faced opponents willing to die for victory. The space battle revealed fundamental differences between human and alien approaches to warfare. The Dominion fought with overwhelming power and rigid discipline, expecting their enemies to submit when faced with superior force. Humans fought as if every engagement might be their last, using creativity and desperation to overcome technological Disadvantages. Human tactical doctrine emphasized exploiting enemy weaknesses rather than matching their strengths. When Dominion ships proved too heavily armored for direct assault, human captains targeted their sensor arrays and communication systems. When alien formations seemed impenetrable, human fighters would create chaos by attacking from unexpected directions. The tide of battle began to turn as human viruses spread through the Dominion fleet's computer networks. Alien ships found their weapon systems malfunctioning and their navigation computers providing false information. The technological advantage that the Dominion had relied upon for centuries was turned against them by human ingenuity. Ambassador Thelani established communication with Admiral Blake during a brief lull in the fighting. The Kelani diplomat was astounded by humanity's willingness to risk everything for a species they had never met. The concept of fighting to protect strangers was foreign to most galactic civilizations, but it seemed to be fundamental to human nature. The battle reached its climax when Commander Morrison succeeded in boarding the Dominion flagship. His assault team fought through corridors designed for aliens twice their size, using weapons and tactics that the enemy crew had never encountered. The capture of the flagship sent shockwaves through the Dominion formation as their command structure collapsed. Human fighters pressed their advantage, dotting between the massive alien ships to target critical systems. The pilots showed the same fearless aggression that had made human armies so effective throughout Earth's violent history. Many fighters were destroyed, but their sacrifice allowed the larger human ships to position themselves for devastating attacks. Darkross achieved a breakthrough when he managed to hack into the Dominion fleet's central communication network. The intelligence he gathered revealed the true scope of the alien empire and the location of their reinforcement fleets. The news was sobering. This battle was just the beginning of a much larger conflict. As the immediate threat to the Kelani homeworld was neutralized, Admiral Blake received urgent messages from Earth. Long-range sensors had detected massive Dominion reinforcements heading toward the battle zone. The alien empire was sending their most experienced commander, General Vorth, along with enough ships to crush any resistance. The human fleet had won the first battle, but they had also revealed their existence to a galactic empire that had never encountered serious opposition. The Dominion would not underestimate Earth's forces again, and their next attack would be designed specifically to counter human tactics. Ambassador Thelani worked frantically to coordinate the evacuation of Kelani survivors while human ships provided protection. The peaceful alien species had learned harsh lessons about the galaxy's true nature, but they had also witnessed something unprecedented, a species willing to fight for principles rather than profit. As reports of approaching Dominion reinforcements reached the human fleet, Admiral Blake faced another impossible decision. His forces had expended most of their ammunition and several ships were badly damaged. The smart tactical choice would be to retreat to Earth and prepare for defense. But leaving now would doom the remaining Kelani to certain death and signal to the galaxy that humanity could be intimidated. General Vorth arrived in the Kelani system with a fleet that blocked out the stars. The Dominion's most experienced military commander had studied the recordings of the previous battle and adapted his strategy to counter human tactics. His massive flagship, the Iron Throne, led a formation of 200 warships designed specifically to crush the upstart species that had dared to challenge the Empire's authority. Admiral Blake watched the approaching enemy fleet with grim determination. His forces were outnumbered 10-1, and many of his ships were still damaged from the previous engagement. The smart move would be to retreat to Earth and prepare for a defensive war, but Blake knew that running now would doom the Kelani and signal weakness to every species in the galaxy. The asteroid field on the edge of the Kelani system became the setting for humanity's most desperate battle. Blake ordered his fleet to take position among the massive floating rocks, using the natural obstacles to break up the Dominion's formation advantage. The asteroids provided cover for his smaller ships, while forcing the enemy to split their overwhelming firepower. General Vorth proved to be a more dangerous opponent than any human commander had faced. Unlike his predecessors, he had learned from the previous battle and refused to be drawn into the chaotic close-quarters fighting that humans excelled at. Instead, he used his superior numbers to surround the asteroid field and systematically destroy every hiding place. Captain Diana Ross commanded the stealth ship Shadow Dancer, one of Earth's most advanced vessels. Her ship was designed for reconnaissance and special operations, equipped with cloaking technology that made it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Ross led a squadron of similar vessels in guerrilla attacks against the Dominion fleet, striking without warning and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The battle became a deadly game of cat and mouse among the asteroids. Human ships would emerge from hiding to launch devastating attacks, then vanish back into the rock field before the Dominion could bring their superior firepower to bear. The tactic was effective but costly, as each engagement claimed more of Earth's irreplaceable vessels. Engineer Tom Bradley worked miracles aboard the battleship Defiance, keeping the damaged ship operational through improvised repairs and creative problem-solving. When the ship's main reactor was damaged by Dominion fire, Bradley rerouted power through the backup systems while his team worked under fire to restore primary functions. His efforts exemplified the human ability to adapt and survive under impossible conditions. General Vorth countered human tactics by using the asteroid field against them. Dominion ships began targeting the largest asteroids with planet-cracking weapons, creating debris storms that threatened to destroy everything in their path. The alien commander was willing to sacrifice the valuable mineral resources to eliminate the troublesome humans. Ambassador Thelani worked from a hidden base on one of the asteroids, coordinating between human and Kelani forces. The peaceful diplomat had been transformed by the war, learning to think tactically and make hard decisions about resource allocation. The Kelani provided crucial intelligence about Dominion technology and tactics, helping human commanders exploit weaknesses in enemy systems. The asteroid field battle revealed the true nature of human military thinking. While other species might have retreated when faced with overwhelming odds, humans saw the situation as a challenge to overcome through ingenuity and determination. Each setback led to new tactics and more creative solutions. Captain Ross discovered that the Dominion ships were vulnerable during their recharging cycles. The massive alien vessels needed to pause between major weapon discharges, creating brief windows of opportunity for human attacks. She coordinated her stealth squadron to exploit these moments, striking at critical systems when the enemy was temporarily defenseless. The fighting reached a crescendo when General Vorth ordered a direct assault on the largest asteroid, which housed the human command center. Dominion boarding troops landed on the rocky surface in overwhelming numbers, forcing human marines to fight a desperate defensive action in the asteroid's tunnels and caverns. Sergeant Park led the defense of the command center, using tactics that would have been considered war crimes by more civilized species. Her Marines collapsed tunnels to trap enemy soldiers, used makeshift explosives to create devastating ambush, and fought with the kind of brutal efficiency that only humans seemed capable of achieving. The battle underground became a nightmare for the Dominion troops. They were trained for conventional warfare in open space, not the close-quarters combat that humans had perfected through millennia of urban warfare. Every corridor became a killing ground, and every room could hide deadly surprises. Admiral Blake realized that conventional tactics would not win this battle. The Dominion had too many ships and too much firepower to be defeated through normal military engagement. He needed something dramatic, something that would shock the enemy into retreat or surrender. The solution came from studying the asteroid field itself. The plan that Blake devised was typically human in its audacity and disregard for safety. His fleet would lure the Dominion ships into the densest part of the asteroid field, then detonate nuclear charges to create a cascading series of collisions. The resulting chaos would destroy most of both fleets, but it might give Earth's remaining forces a chance to escape. Engineer Bradley worked with the fleet's bomb disposal experts to modify nuclear warheads for the desperate plan. The devices needed to be precisely placed and timed to create the maximum destructive effect while giving human ships the best chance of survival. The margin for error was essentially zero. General Vorth sensed that the humans were planning something desperate and increased his attacks on the asteroid field. Dominion ships moved closer to their targets, trying to eliminate human resistance before any new tactic could be implemented. The alien commander's experience told him that desperate enemies were the most dangerous. The trap was sprung when Admiral Blake broadcast a false retreat order that was intercepted by Dominion intelligence. Believing the humans were finally beaten, General Vorth ordered his fleet to advance into the asteroid field to prevent their escape. The moment his ships were in position, Blake triggered the nuclear charges. The explosion was visible from the other side of the solar system. Dozens of asteroids shattered simultaneously, creating a storm of debris that tore through both fleets. With indiscriminate fury, Dominion ships, caught off guard by the human willingness to sacrifice themselves, were destroyed by the thousands of tons of high-velocity rock fragments. The plan worked, but at a terrible cost. Half of Blake's fleet was destroyed in the artificial asteroid storm, and many of the surviving ships were too damaged to continue fighting. The human victory was Pyrrhic, achieved through the kind of suicidal courage that other species found incomprehensible. As the debris settled, both fleets found themselves crippled and scattered throughout the asteroid field. General Vorth's flagship had survived, but most of his supporting vessels were destroyed or disabled. The battle had become a stalemate, with neither side capable of achieving decisive victory. The real shock came when long-range sensors detected new movement at the edge of the system. A massive Dominion fleet was jumping out of hyperspace, headed directly for Earth's coordinates. General Vorth revealed his true strategy. While the human fleet fought desperately in the asteroid field, he had been positioning his reinforcements for a direct assault on humanity's homeworld. The Dominion fleet arrived at Earth expecting to find a defenseless world populated by primitive aliens. Instead, they encountered something that defied all their experience with galactic conquest. The Sol system had been transformed into the ultimate fortress, with every planet, moon, and asteroid serving as a potential weapon in humanity's defense. Director Helen Carter stood in the command center buried deep beneath Luna's surface, watching as her carefully prepared defenses activated. Across the solar system, Earth had spent decades preparing for this moment, even before they knew aliens existed. The assumption had always been simple. Someday humanity would face extinction, and they needed to be ready. The first shock for General Vorth's invasion fleet came from the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. What appeared to be natural space debris suddenly revealed itself as a network of hidden weapons platforms. Mass drivers that had been disguised as mining equipment began hurling chunks of metal at significant fractions of the speed of light, turning asteroids into kinetic weapons of unimaginable destructive power. Captain Alex Reed commanded the Earth Home Fleet from his flagship Earthguard, leading the last line of defense around humanity's homeworld. His ships were smaller than the massive Dominion vessels, but they had been designed with a crucial advantage. They were built by a species that understood they might someday fight for their very survival. The lunar surface erupted with weapon fire as hidden installations revealed themselves. Mass drivers built into the moon's crust launched streams of projectiles at the approaching enemy fleet, while plasma cannons emerged from camouflaged bunkers to engage targets that came within range. The peaceful-looking satellite had been transformed into an armed fortress. Ambassador Thoani watched the battle from aboard a human command ship, finally understanding what made these aliens so unique. Every human installation, from civilian space stations to cargo haulers, had been designed with defensive capability in mind. The entire species lived with the assumption that they would someday need to fight for their right to exist. The Dominion fleet found itself under attack from directions they had never considered. Civilian mining ships in the asteroid belt revealed hidden weapon systems, while supposedly harmless space stations around the gas giants launched swarms of automated fighters. Humanity had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. General Vorth realized he was facing something unprecedented in Dominion experience. Most species, when conquered, would surrender once their homeworld was threatened. Humans seemed to have prepared for the complete destruction of their planet, and were ready to continue fighting from anywhere in their solar system. The Jupiter. Orbital platforms represented the pinnacle of human defensive thinking. Massive installations that appeared to be fuel processing facilities suddenly revealed themselves as fleet construction yards, launching freshly built warships directly into combat. The humans had been building ships in secret, preparing for a war they knew would come eventually. Captain Reed led his home fleet in tactics. That would have been considered insane by any other species. Human ships rammed Dominion vessels when their weapons ran out of ammunition, with crews ejecting at the last moment to be picked up by other vessels. The concept of acceptable losses took on new meaning when applied by a species that viewed extinction as the only unacceptable outcome. The battle reached a turning point when Engineer Bradley, broadcasting from the damaged Defiance in the Kelani system, provided crucial intelligence about Dominion ship construction. His analysis of captured enemy vessels revealed weaknesses that Earth's defenders could exploit. Turning the tide of the home system battle, Director Carter activated the final phase of Earth's defense plan, something that had been kept secret even from most of the military. Hidden installations throughout the solar system began broadcasting a signal that interfered with Dominion faster-than-light communication systems. The enemy fleet found itself cut off from reinforcements and unable to coordinate with their empire. The underground facilities on Mars revealed their true purpose as vast armies of automated defenders emerged from hidden bunkers. Robotic systems that had been disguised as terraforming equipment turned out to be military production facilities, churning out weapons and ammunition to supply the human fleet. Ambassador Thelani finally understood why humans were so effective at warfare. They didn't fight because they enjoyed violence. They fought because they had evolved on a world that constantly threatened their existence. Earth had taught them that survival required constant vigilance and the willingness to fight. Against impossible odds, General Vorth found himself trapped in the Sol system as human defenses closed around his fleet like a trap. The weapons platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt had cut off his retreat route, while Earth's defenders pressed their attack from all directions. His massive ships, designed to intimidate civilized species, were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that refused to be intimidated. The final engagement took place in Earth's orbit, where Captain Reed led a desperate charge directly into the Dominion flagship's hangar bay. The boarding action that followed demonstrated human combat prowess at its most terrifying, as Reed's Marines fought through the massive alien vessel with tactics that broke the morale of enemy crew members. The capture of General Vorth marked the end of Dominion resistance in the Sol system. The alien commander found himself face-to-face with Admiral Blake, who had arrived from the Kelani system with the remnants of his fleet. The human admiral's words to his prisoner became legendary throughout the galaxy. Blake explained to Vorth that humans didn't fight for conquest or resources. They fought for the simple right to exist. Earth had taught them that the universe was hostile and that survival required strength. They would protect any species that shared their love of life and freedom, but they would show no mercy to those who threatened innocent civilizations. The aftermath of the battle saw humanity emerge as a major power in galactic politics. Ambassador Thelani became Earth's first alien ally, helping to establish diplomatic relations with peaceful species throughout the galaxy. The Kelani provided advanced technology in exchange for human military protection, creating the foundation for a new kind of interstellar alliance. Word of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy, carried by Dominion survivors who had witnessed something unprecedented. A young species had not only defeated a major galactic empire but had done so while protecting others. The concept of fighting for principles rather than profit was revolutionary in galactic politics. The final scene showed Admiral Blake receiving distress calls from dozens of alien civilizations, all requesting help from the humans who had answered the first call. Earth's fleet, now expanded with Kelani technology and volunteers from liberated worlds, prepared for their next mission as the galaxy's unexpected protectors. Director Carter stood on Luna Station, looking out at the stars with new understanding. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community not through diplomacy or trade, but through the simple act of doing what was right. The death world that had made them the galaxy's most effective warriors had also given them the moral courage to use that strength. In defense of the innocent, the story ended with Earth's transformation from an isolated world to the center of a growing alliance of free species. Humanity had proven that strength without compassion was tyranny, but compassion without strength was merely good intentions. The galaxy would never be the same,